Anthony Hartwig here with a very special edition of what we're calling the summer segment of Living the Dream. And we're joined by Duke softball alum and now professional softball player for the Texas Monarchs, Kelly Torres. Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You've been able to do all these wonderful things, but before we talk about that and where you are now, I want to go back into your memory bank and talk about the start of your journey, picking up softball and some of your earliest memories of the sport and some of the things that really made you fall in love with it.
Yeah. Well, I grew up with three older brothers and they all played baseball. So I was always at the ballpark and always wanting to be like them. And yeah, that's how I got into softball. I started playing softball and I never looked back. I always just wanted to outperform my brothers, honestly. And it got me here.
You grew up in a baseball family, and I'm sure you had to convert some of them to the softball side of things. What was that like? Because there are some differences there. Everyone
Oh,
thinks it's exactly the same, but once you dive into softball, it's not the same as baseball. So, what was that like transitioning your family into the softball side of things?
yeah, I'm also the princess, like I'm the only girl, I'm the youngest of the family. So they none of my brothers went and played college ball. And so everyone was just like Kelly's the athlete of the family and they had no problem being my biggest supporters, my number one fans. They were at every travel ball tournament and every softball family knows. I mean, it's every weekend. It's a grind. It really is fall, winter, then summer ball. So they're at everything for me.
Athlete of the family, that's a lot of pressure to put on you too. Like, hey, you are holding up our family name.
Yeah.
You better not let it down. And you didn't. But when you go through all the work that you had to put in, you gotta love the sport. You gotta fall in love with it. When did you kind of transition from softball is fun to softball is something that I want to dive into and put a lot of work into and get myself to a big spot?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it had to be around sixth grade. Sixth grade, I was like, okay, I've been playing for this sport since I was a child, and I'm getting into middle school. And this is when, back in the day, people were getting committed in eighth grade. So I was like, this is something I want to seriously pursue. And I have a trainer, Chris De La Rosa, out of South Florida. And I've been with him since sixth grade. We worked catching, we worked hitting, and I worked every single week, if not every single day, at the craft to get me where I'm at.
Once you make that decision, the workload gets piled up. Like you have to really put in the time to get yourself to that level. Are you an athlete that loved putting in the extra time, or were you someone that had to kind of be pushed to do it? Because both athletes exist and both athletes get to where they need to be.
Yeah.
But some athletes just thrive. Like, give me all the T work, give me all the lifting. I want it. And some athletes are just have to be a little bit nudged to that calling. What side of the fence were you on?
I loved it. I woke up early and I went to workouts at Bomarito, just a gym by my house before school started. Then I went to school, went to practice, and then I had like extra training after practice, like one-on-one stuff. So I was always grinding and I loved it. It was my life.
As you already said, recruiting back then a little bit differently. You had to start it a lot younger than kids do nowadays. What was your recruiting story like? What were some of the things that you did to try to get yourself recruited, and what were some of the things you were looking for? And then obviously you hit Duke. So what were some of the things that Duke had that
Yeah.
made you feel like home?
Well, Duke has been my dream school even before. They had a softball team. My mom is very big into academics, and so her dream school was Duke, and her parents didn't let her go away for college, so she went to Miami. So at a young age, I all I heard was Duke, 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 and when they finally said they had a softball program, I was at the very first Duke softball camp as an eighth grader. And fun fact, I was the first one there, and I helped coach set up the bow net. So I was helping setting up practice or the camp.
What kind of moment was it when you realized that Duke had a softball program or built a softball
Yeah.
program and it was already your dream school? I mean, was that one of those okay, it's meant to be kind of deals?
Yeah, it really was. So I remember vividly my coach in 12U, we had like homeworks to do every week. And so our homework was to write a list of our top colleges. And then the next week we'd write emails to them. And so my top colleges were Miami, Vanderbilt, Duke, all these schools that didn't have a softball program. And everyone was making fun of me at practice. They're like, Kelly, how do you not know? None of these schools have a program. And then Duke 2 years later or a year later, announced that they were having a softball school. So it was like a no brainer for me that that was where I was going to want to go.
That's where you go back to all the people that were making fun of you and say, I knew, I
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this getting on campus and doing your official visits and meeting the coaching staff and it becoming more less of a dream and more of a reality that Duke in the softball program specifically was where you wanted to be.
Yeah. Well, I put the work in, I went to camps, I emailed, they came to watch me. And so when they offered me a visit, I went on and it was heaven. It's beautiful campus. Everywhere, everyone there is like, committed to excellence. Either you're an athlete or you're in the classroom. Like everyone there wants to do great things. And it's who you surround yourself with, and that's who you become. So I mean, it was a no-brainer. Once coach offered me, I was like, yes, 100% I'm in. And I never looked back. I never doubted my decision once.
When you're going through all that, you're also going through the early ages of your softball career, your high school career, all that
Yes.
fun stuff. What was it like to try to balance, trying to get your dreams taken care of and also being a kid playing high school softball and trying to also live up to your community?
Yeah. Being a kid and playing softball, I mean, especially community, say that word, and it's like I come from a Cuban Colombian family, and sport and baseball within itself has just been the pillar of everything. And so being able to go to Duke and in such a like high institution and play for them, it's been awesome. And I'm not where I'm at by myself. I have such a strong village behind me and my family, and they are my biggest supporters. I get more joy to see them happy about the things I accomplish than myself accomplishing them.
What was it like for you to be able to represent them in high school softball and to be able to play for that hometown community and be a hometown hero like I'm sure that you were?
Yeah. It was, I mean, literally awesome. I wish I can go back and do it over again, because I feel like in high school and when you're in the moment, you don't realize all of the love and all the support that you have. And I mean, I am just so grateful that I was brought up surrounded by all that love. But yeah, I ended up getting female athlete of the year in my high school. And so I always had family and supporters just constantly coming to my games and watching me play. And when I committed, they were just like, yes, you're going on, you're doing big things. So it was awesome.
Up here, and I'm sure in your community too, when you make a commitment to a big school that everyone knows, all of a sudden all the lights turn on, and everyone kind of wants to know everything about you, and everyone wants to do interviews with you, and you get the newspaper articles, all that fun stuff. What was that like once you committed to Duke and you got the attention of not even just your high school community, but everyone in the surrounding communities in the region? They wanted to know what this softball player that's going on to do big things was all about.
Yeah, there is. I mean, that was probably my first moments with the press and like with writers. And obviously, when you get to Duke, there's interviews almost after every game, and there's reporters everywhere. So when I first committed, that was probably the first time I had encounters with that. And I love to share my story. I kind of felt seen. You feel heard. You put so much hours in, and the early mornings and the late nights. And now when your work is finally being paid off and people now see the fruits to your labor, it's pretty cool thing to be recognized for that.
As a teenager, did it ever add pressure to you to try to live up to those people giving you attention, or were you kind of just focusing on your own thing and not letting that kind of pressure get into your mindset?
I think in high school things came easy to me. I think I didn't run into that problem until like halfway through my college career is when things just became too much and kind of piled on me, as I think normal college kids go through. But in high school, I mean, I loved it. I was in APs, and I was able to juggle school and athletics, and things like that just kind of came easy.
When you were committed and still trying to accomplish so much in high school, how did you stay motivated when you already knew that your college career was going to happen and you had that locked down and you knew you didn't have to impress coaches anymore? What drove you after you were committed to Duke to still have be excellent in high school?
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to just go to go to Duke. I wanted to go to Duke and start at Duke. So I think that drove me, is like I didn't want to just be a freshman on the team. I wanted to play. And yeah, I mean, I got to where I was working hard. So once you get there, the working hard part doesn't just stop. If anything, it heightens, and you got to start, putting yourself into gear and to get to where you want to go. Because once you reach that step, now there's a new goal to reach.
In this high profile sports world, no one talks about the sacrifices you have to give up to get there, like the things that you have to give up to put in the work to get there. What kind of things do you think you sacrificed or you kind of put aside, especially at that time of your life, to get yourself to where you wanted to go?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of social events. To be an athlete, you're not going to always go to the parties or the fun vacays that your friends are doing in school. You have requirements and things that you need to do to meet your goals. And a lot of like, I feel like people don't talk about the ACT and the SAT. I put in a lot of work into getting a high score in order to get to Duke. And so that also took a lot of work. It's not just the athletic training, but you need to put in the hours of studying. And so, yeah, there's just moments. I remember missing the football state finals, and our high school team made it to the state championship, and I wasn't able to go with my friends. And there's memories like that you miss, but it doesn't even compare to the memories you make if you put in the hard work and you stay disciplined.
So I'm sure signing day for you was really special because you said Duke was somewhere you wanted to go for a long time. So
Yeah.
talk about that day when you signed it on the dotted line. You weren't committed anymore. You were signed, and it was a reality that you were going to Duke.
Yeah. Uh, Signing day was awesome. I was the only softball player, I think, at that time signing. There's a lot of baseball players. My high school is a pretty big sports school, so it was cool to see. Well, honestly, it's really cool now to look back at that signing day picture and see where everyone is now. But my friends went to Vanderbilt, and so there was other big schools, being signed, and it was honestly a big party. My parents, my dad, he was crying. If I go back and look at photos, like all of the photos, he's like looking down and hiding his face because you finally did it. You signed the seal, and you accomplished your first big goal of life. So it was an awesome day.
And then as soon as you do that, the reality sets in that okay, it's the next rung in the ladder. It's now I'm a D1 athlete. What was your welcome to D1 softball moment? The thing that kind of the culture shock of okay, now things are a little bit more serious.
When you go to college, at least for Duke, there's a run test, and I think that was my first like, this is some real deal, crap going on over here. And uh, you train for it. In the summers, I was training really hard. So what our run test is, it's 18 gassers, there and back, and then there's an 18-second group and a 19-second group, and you have to make it in that time. And then you get a minute rest in between each one, and you have to make 16 out of the 18 gassers. You get 18 tries, and you have to make 16 of them. And so around like rep 8, it really just becomes mental and not physical anymore. Because if you can do 8 gassers, you can do the whole thing, but it's mentally draining. Your body's fatigued, but you still have to get on that line, and you have to run, and you have to make it in a certain amount of time. So I think coming in, that was my first real experience where I'm like, this isn't a joke. This is real. And you push through and you get through it, and you do that 3 more times each year, and yeah, you learn to love it.
You used mentality a lot in that answer. What was your mental, like, how did you get through the mental hurdles of transitioning to now softball is like a job? Like you have to put a lot more time
Yeah.
dedication to be a college softball player. How did you handle that transition going into Duke?
Yeah. I think I had a special case, at least my year, the grads of 2024. We came in at COVID.
Mhm.
And so such a weird time. We honestly, I think it was a nice way to slowly prepare into college. You weren't just thrown into a bunch of classes. Like we had classes, but they were online. Scheduling was probably a bit easier. And we weren't missing out on all the social events because there literally was no social events. And so we hung out just with the team in our little bubble, and it was a nice easy way into college. Classes were online. Practice was all you really had to do. And yeah, I think it really hit me sophomore year.
How close do you think COVID year, and like you said, being in the bubble with your team and only your team, make, especially the class of 24 at Duke? How close did that make you guys?
Oh my God, extremely close. That year was so fun. I'm sorry. That year was so fun. So that's the year we won the ACC championship for the first time in program history. And I don't think it's, that just happened by coincidence. We worked extremely hard and we were extremely close. And so that, it takes a lot more than just talent to win an ACC championship. It takes gelling, it takes the team really working together and being on the same page. And that group was very special. I mean, we did things that no one thought we could do, and we really set a standard for the future of Duke.
Talk about the results being harder to come by in college and how you dealt with that. Because in high school, a lot of these girls that are going to go off to big colleges, they might be hitting 600 in high school because there's pitchers that just
Yeah.
can't pitch on their level. And then you go into college, you're a small fish in a big pond all of a sudden.
Yeah.
How did you initially handle the reality that the results might not come as easily in college anymore?
Yeah. Good thing about being a freshman is there's no video or stats on you. So they don't really know how to throw you, and that's awesome. So you kind of go in just being able to play loose and free, but it also comes with the price of you've never seen high level players before. You're 18 and you're playing with girls who are 23 years old, and who have been playing for a bit in this experience and on the stage. And I think it feels nice and it feels good to know that there's no stats on you and you can go out there and just play free. No one really knows what to do with you yet. But you have to remind yourself that these girls have been, playing for a while. So not let that get to you. Just stay within yourselves. And it's the same game. That's what I tell myself all the time is the ball doesn't change. The bases don't move further. It's the same game that I've been playing since I was 8 years old.
And we're catching you at the end of your Duke softball career now as a professional. But when you look back on the 4 years at Duke, what are some things that you're like the most proud of that you personally were able to do as a Blue Devil?
Yeah. I'm most proud of building a standard. Duke is a very, very young program. And when I committed in Team 2, they were setting a standard and they're putting in hard work, and they weren't seeing the fruits of their labor. Like I was saying earlier, they weren't seeing the results, but they were putting in the work. And when I came in Team 4 is kind of when the switch flipped and we won our first ACCs. We went to regionals for the first time. Then the next year after that, my sophomore year, we made it to supers for the first time. And the year after that, we hosted supers for the first time. So each year we were there, we are getting further and further. And then my senior year, we ended in OKC. And I mean, we did things that programs don't do in 50 years, and we did it in 7 years. And that's what I'm most proud of, is just being able to make a standard at Duke. And although we're young, it doesn't, don't shun us out, because not only are we a basketball school, we're a softball school now.
Softball school for days. When you think about catching, because you're one of the best catchers in the country, ranked number 10, I think, by Softball America. Catchers are different. They're built different. There's a different mentality. I've talked to a lot of catchers. It takes a special brand of person to go back there and be a backstop. When did you kind of click that catcher's mentality? When did you fall in love with that position?
Oh, I fell in love at such an early age. I'm a short kid. I always have been, and I don't have the biggest bat, and it's kind of strange because usually catchers are the big bats with, a lot of muscle, and they're big back there. And so I really loved owning that I am a small, mighty catcher, and I kind of let that fuel me for the rest of the career. I mean, anyone who talks to me, I love defense. That's my bread and butter. I love the art of framing and talking to the umpire. You have to be suave with your words, and like there's an art behind it that people who don't really know the sport would understand. Um, and I pride myself on that. I pride myself on just being a defensive player. And the pitchers who have been on my team know how much I love it and take pride in it. And I'm sure they love it on their ends, because I'm working my tail off for them, and we become a great battery. Every team that I've been on always has a great battery.
When you think of your time at Duke, what's one thing that you wish you knew when you were going in that you learned along the way that you wish you knew before you started?
Yeah. Something I wish I knew. I feel like everything happens for a reason. I think I I wouldn't change anything about my career path, but if I was to do it again, I wish I knew what I wanted to do with my life, like outside of softball and school, because then I could have started internships and classes and academics a little earlier. In the beginning, I was just taking whatever classes sounded cool and fun, but it definitely would have helped me a little bit with, time scheduling if I knew what I wanted to do. But again, that comes with growth, and um, I still don't even know if what I want to do is correct. So it's everyone's always growing all the time. I really wouldn't change a thing.
I mean, I can't let you go without asking about OKC and being able to play there and what that experience. That is something that every softball player dreams of. They want to go to OKC and play in that atmosphere, play in that moment. What was that like for you?
Ah, it was awesome. I mean, that's literally the dream when you start playing as an 8-year old, is to make it to the biggest stage. And to see the amount of people that come out to softball is just crazy. I've never played in a crowd like that before. And to know you made it, to know that you were in the World Series and finished your career there and were able to be a leader that brought your team there, it speaks volume. I mean, it's a testament to all the people and all the Duke teams that came before us. Team 4, 5, 6, all the teams that I was on before. We worked for that moment. Um, and to get there was just a dream come true. I mean, I was like a kid in a candy shop. Every time I looked up, I was in awe that I was in that moment.
How did you focus in after all that? Like, you don't get caught in the lights, as they like to say.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make the moment any bigger than it is. I said earlier that it's the same game,
Mhm.
same basis, same ball, and that's all I tell myself. And you know, God brought me to that moment, and I was just like, why not play the best? Why not just let it all out there? You made it. So, I mean, I think I didn't let the moment get too big, because when you make it to the Women's College World Series, you obviously don't want to just make it and not do anything with it. You want to make it and play your best and see how far you can go in the World Series. So, I went up there and I was just like, just do you. Nothing changes. The game doesn't change.
Here you are, not done playing. You continue your career in the WPF for the Monarchs. What went into just deciding that, hey, I want to keep going, I want to keep playing, I want to play this game as long as I can?
Yeah. Softball is really the only sport that doesn't have a big professional league. And I think it's cool that now people are like, I want to keep playing, and it's become normalized. I think obviously it can grow so much more. I mean, I'm excited for the day that there's going to be one league and it can kind of be like a feed in like the MLB, and maybe there's 8 teams and we combine all these leagues together. But the fact that we're starting something and there's something happening and we're in the beginning of it, it's kind of cool. So I'm excited to see where this can go. And I know just more softball players are going to want to go pro as more people join in.
What's it like being a part of a group of players that's trying to, like you said, build the foundation for professional softball and give
Yeah.
more and more players the avenue after college? What's that like, trying to be the foundation builders and trying to just do everything you can to grow the game at that level?
Yeah, that's something that intrigued me about Duke, is that we were going to make the standard and the foundation for
Mhm.
years to come, since it was a new program. And when this happened, I was like, hell yeah. Like, it was such an awesome like career at Duke, and why not do that in the pro level and be able to create a team that, I mean, the Texas Monarchs, we're a stacked team. We're learning how to play together. We've only played 3 weeks together, but once we find our rhythm and find the pieces and find how we work and who we identify as, we're going to be an awesome team. So it's cool to be able to set the foundation, and I hope things start changing in the right directions, and that we all start getting on the same page that college or softball is and can make a lot of money in the professional level.
Who were some of the players in the Monarchs roster that were on your radar, you hadn't had a chance to play with, and when you saw it, you were like, "Oh, I am so excited to be able to share a field with this person"?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Jada Kearney is one that comes to mind. I just interviewed her. I also have a podcast, so if people want to go listen, it's Softball Speakeasy. But Jada Kearney played at Georgia, and I mean, a big bat. She just, I don't know if people watched the SEC tournament, but she had an insane home run in the 14th inning that made them like continue to play, and they ended up winning that game. But it's just like, I think she's one that I'm playing with that I'm just like, how were you even real in college? Devin Flaherty, I played her every single, year at FSU, and now we're teammates. So it's kind of fun how we went from playing each other and rivals to now we're on the same team, and you don't really know who people are because you don't know them, but you kind of get a vibe from how they play, and it's fun to see who they are as humans outside of just being a player.
All right, so one of the full circle things we want to do is just ask you for advice that you'd give to players now that are either preparing this year to go on to college campus, or maybe they're going to college campus in the next couple of years, and they're locked in, they're going to be a college softball player. What are some of the things that they can do to prepare themselves for, not having that culture shock of stepping onto a college
Yeah.
campus and realizing, uh-oh, this is not high school softball anymore?
Yeah. I would say to not, let me say not. I would say to continue to make goals. I think when you make it to college and you're like, oh, I did it, and you kind of become satisfied, that's not what drove you to work hard. I mean, when you were working hard to get to where you wanted to be, you had goals, you had plans. And so once you make that, make new goals, make bigger plans, never stop dreaming, because if you stop dreaming, you stop working hard. And so that's what kind of always pumped me is, okay, I have a new goal. I have a new accomplishment I want to make. And so continuing to have that and write it in your journal, keep track of these things and become more in tune with yourself. And by doing those things, you're never going to, want to stop working, and you're going to just reach potentials that you never even thought you could.
All right, we do this with every athlete we interview, no matter what level they're playing at, because we know there are so many people that got them to where they are and that have helped them along the way. I want you to take the spotlight off yourself for a minute, shine it on the people in your life that you wouldn't be where you are without. We're not the Oscars. We're not going to cut you off. So as many shout outs and thanks as you want to give.
So many. My village runs so deep, but I mean, my parents first and foremost. They have put in so many hours, so much time, so much money, so much dedication into playing softball year round, and they put their lives on pause so I can thrive and do what I love. My family, outside of my parents, my cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, they were all there sharing their love with me. My brothers, Kyle, the one who's closest to me, is probably my biggest fan, always watches every single one of my games, gives me feedback. Even if I don't want feedback, he's there to give it to me. All the coaches that I've played under, I mean, my 8U softball coach still comes to my games, and I never really had a bad coach. I mean, all of them. I had shout out Coach Pam, shout out Coach Michelle Nevling. She also played pro ball back in the day, so it's cool now that I'm playing pro ball. So Chris De La Rosa, he's my trainer since I was a kid. My high school coach, Marty Cooper, he really knew how to run a defense, and I credit a lot to how I am vocally as a catcher, because he made me as a sixth grader who wanted to be on varsity learn how to yell at all these older girls, seniors on the team, and tell them where to go. And I needed to be yelling every play. So I think I became a very vocal catcher from him. Yeah, I mean, I want to shout out just all the players I've ever played with, because they built me up as I built them up. Yeah, and I think that's where I would end. But it's just so much love to everyone who's helped me in my career, and all my friends and family. And I just couldn't be here without them.
Kelly, we want to thank you so much for the time and letting us share your story for all the softball players in our community. I know they're going to love hearing from you. We wish you the best of luck in the rest of the WPF season, and whatever you decide to keep doing in your future, we know you're going to do great things. Thank you again for the time, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Yeah, thank you.